The sound woke Caleb before the cold did. It was not wind. He knew wind. Wind screamed through the trees, rattled the roof, pushed against the cabin like a living thing. This sound was lower, dull, almost careful, as if something heavy had leaned against the door and slid down. Caleb sat up on the narrow bed, heart already beating faster. The stove had burned low during the night, and the air inside the cabin smelled of ash and frozen pine. Outside, the storm was still raging. Snow hammered the walls, piling higher with every hour. Then the sound came again. One short scrape. A pause. Another scrape. Caleb pulled on his boots and jacket without turning on the light. He grabbed the flashlight from the hook near the door, his fingers stiff from the cold. No one came out here at night. Not in weather like this. When he opened the door, the storm rushed in first. Snow spun into the cabin, sharp and dry, stinging his face. The beam of the flashlight cut through the white for only a few feet. At first, he thought the shape on the porch was a fallen log. Then the shape moved. A lynx lay curled against the wooden boards, her body pressed tight to the door as if she had chosen this place on purpose. Her thick winter coat was caked with ice, the tips of her ears heavy with snow. She did not growl. She did not rise. Caleb froze. Only when he lowered the flashlight did he see the small bundle tucked beneath her chest. A single cub, barely moving, its thin sides fluttering with shallow breaths. The mother shifted just enough to pull the cub closer, shielding it from the wind with her own body. The lynx lifted her head. Her eyes reflected the light, not wild with fear, but dull with exhaustion. She tried to stand. Her legs failed her. Caleb stepped back instinctively, giving her space. He had dealt with injured animals before, but never this close, never alone, and never with the storm cutting off every road for miles. The lynx did not bare her teeth. She only lowered her head again, breath coming out in short, uneven bursts. The cub made a faint sound, more vibration than cry. Caleb looked past them into the night. Snow swallowed everything beyond the porch. No tracks, no sign of where they had come from. Just the storm, thick and endless. He knew what the cold did. He had seen deer freeze standing up. He had found wolves stiff beneath fallen branches after nights like this. An adult lynx might survive until morning. The cub would not. Caleb crouched slowly, keeping his movements wide and clear. He spoke without thinking, his voice low and steady, the same tone he used with panicked hikers and injured dogs. "Easy. I see you. Just stay." The lynx watched him, her body tense but weak. When he reached for the cub, she lifted her head again, a warning without sound. Caleb stopped, waited, then slid his jacket off and held it out, letting her smell it. Seconds stretched. The storm roared. Finally, the lynx did nothing. That was enough. Caleb made the decision before fear could argue back. If he left them here, the night would finish what exhaustion had started. He reached forward again, ready to move fast, knowing that once he acted, there would be no turning back. If they stayed outside, neither of them would see morning. Caleb moved fast. The moment he stepped fully onto the porch, the cold punched through his clothes. He slid one arm under the cub first, lifting it carefully, keeping its body pressed close to his chest. The lynx reacted instantly, lifting her head with a low, strained sound, but she did not rise. "Easy. I'm not taking him away." He shifted, braced his shoulder against her side, and with a single controlled motion dragged both animals across the threshold. Snow scattered across the floor as he kicked the door shut with his heel. The cabin fell quiet except for the storm muffled behind thick logs. The lynx tried again to stand. Her legs shook, then folded. She collapsed onto her side, breath rasping. Caleb stepped back at once, hands open, heart hammering. This was the moment he had feared. A cornered predator. No space to retreat. But she did not charge. She only pulled the cub closer and fixed her eyes on him. Caleb moved slowly to the fireplace. The coals still glowed beneath ash. He fed the fire until flames rose again, filling the room with dry heat. The cabin smelled of smoke and melting snow. He laid a thick blanket on the floor several steps from the fire, careful to keep his back turned as much as possible. When he set the cub down on the blanket, it stirred. A tiny paw twitched. The cub let out a weak sound, then another. Its body pressed instinctively toward the warmth. Caleb exhaled for the first time since opening the door. He fetched a small bottle of warm water and powdered milk from his supplies. He did not look at the lynx as he worked. He stayed low, movements slow and predictable. When he offered the bottle to the cub, his hand shook despite his effort to stay calm. The mother's ears tilted forward. Her eyes never left him. The cub latched clumsily, drinking in short bursts. Milk spilled onto the blanket. Caleb adjusted the angle, careful not to touch more than necessary. Every second felt stretched thin. Nothing happened. The lynx remained still. She did not snarl. She did not bare her teeth. She watched, breathing steadier now, the firelight catching the pale fur around her face. Hours passed that way. Caleb stayed seated near the fire, feeding the cub when it stirred, adding wood when the flames dipped. Outside, the storm screamed on. Inside, time slowed to the rhythm of breathing and crackling logs. Sometime after midnight, the lynx shifted. She rose unsteadily and moved closer to the fire, positioning herself between Caleb and the door. She lay down again, facing outward, her back to him, the cub tucked safely beneath her chest. It was not trust. It was not yet, but it was something. When dawn finally began to thin the darkness at the window, Caleb realized the lynx had slept. Not with one eye open, not ready to flee. She had rested, and she had not left. The days that followed passed without names. Caleb measured time by small changes. By the way the fire lasted longer between logs. By the sound of the storm loosening its grip on the trees. By the lynx lifting her head when he entered a room, then setting it down again. They shared the cabin in silence. In the mornings, Caleb moved through the kitchen slowly, careful with every step. He boiled water, mixed milk, left the bowl on the floor, and stepped back. The cub drank with more strength now, paws kneading the blanket as if it were soil. The mother watched from a short distance, standing when she needed to, walking with a stiff but steady gait. By the third day, she crossed the room without swaying. Caleb opened the door only when the wind allowed it. Fresh air rolled in, clean and sharp. The lynx stood at the threshold, sniffing, ears turning, eyes fixed on the forest beyond the porch. She did not leave. Not yet. He spent hours outside, moving snow away from the shed, clearing a path from the door. Each time he returned, he stopped, waited, let her see him before stepping inside. Their communication was built from pauses and distance, from the way he avoided her eyes and the way she allowed him closer. No sounds passed between them, only looks. One afternoon, Caleb carried firewood from the shed. When he turned, the lynx stood beside the porch, her body framed by pale light. She did not retreat. She stepped aside and let him pass. That night, he prepared a space near the bedroom door. He did not invite her in. He did not need to. When he lay down, the cabin was quiet except for the crack of cooling logs. Sometime before dawn, he heard movement. Soft, controlled. The lynx settled on the floor outside his room, her body angled toward the door, the cub tucked against her side. When Caleb shifted in bed, she did not rise. When he stood and took one careful step forward, she only lifted her head. She stayed. In the morning, the sky was different. The light through the window was thin and pale, not gray. Snow no longer fell in sheets. The trees stood clearer, their outlines sharp against the horizon. Caleb stepped onto the porch and felt the air bite without cutting. The storm had passed. He knew what that meant. Roads would open soon. The forest would wake. And the lynx would not stay once the cold loosened its hold. Caleb pulled on his jacket and reached for the shovel leaning against the wall. There was work to do. The morning was quiet in a way that made Caleb uneasy. No wind pressed against the cabin. No snow hissed across the porch. The sky was pale and hard, the kind of clear that came only after violence. He stepped outside with the shovel, boots crunching on a skin of ice that had formed overnight. He worked methodically, clearing the path from the door, breaking frozen ridges along the edge of the porch. Each breath burned. Each movement sent a dull ache through his shoulders. Behind the shed, a fallen spruce lay half-buried under drifted snow. Its trunk had cracked days earlier under the weight of the storm. Caleb moved closer, planning to free the path before the thaw made everything heavier. He did not see the ice. His foot slid sideways. The shovel clattered away. He tried to catch himself, twisted, and fell hard. Pain exploded up his leg, sharp and immediate, stealing the air from his lungs. He screamed once. The sound tore out of him and vanished into the trees. Caleb tried to move. His body obeyed until it reached his left leg. Then nothing. The pain returned in waves, deep and crushing. He looked down and saw the angle. Wrong. Before he could react, the loosened trunk shifted. The heavy end dropped, pinning his leg against the frozen ground. Snow burst upward, then settled. Caleb lay still, staring at the sky. He reached for his radio. No signal. The forest stood silent around him, indifferent. The cold crept in quickly, biting through his jacket, into his chest, his hands. He tried to pull free. The log did not move. Caleb shouted again, louder this time. Nothing answered. Minutes stretched. His fingers numbed first, then his toes. Then the pain began to dull into something heavier and more dangerous. His breath came shallow. Each exhale left him weaker. He closed his eyes and forced them open again. Stay awake. His thoughts drifted despite him. He saw the firelight in the cabin, heard the crackle of burning wood, felt the steady warmth that had filled the room nights before. He wondered if the animals were still inside. The cold pressed harder. Then, through the ringing in his ears, he heard it. A low, familiar sound. Not wind. Not wood settling. Breathing. Rough and close. The lynx stood over him, silent and steady against the pale morning sky. Caleb could not turn his head, but he recognized her instantly by the rough sound of her breath and the solid weight of her body near his chest. Snow crunched softly as she stepped closer, careful and deliberate, as if measuring every movement. Then she lowered herself onto him, settling her body across his chest and shoulders. Her fur pressed against his jacket, thick, dry, and warm, trapping what little heat remained in his body. Caleb gasped. The warmth was real, immediate. It cut through the numbness like a blade, sharp and grounding. She stayed there without shifting, her weight even, her heart beating slow and strong against him. Caleb focused on that rhythm, matching his breathing to it, forcing air in and out. When his breaths finally steadied, the lynx lifted herself and turned toward his trapped leg. Her paws dug into the snow around the fallen log. She pulled once, then again, muscles tightening beneath her fur. The log did not move. She circled him, restless now, pacing a tight arc. She returned briefly to his chest, pressing her body against him again, then moved back to the log with renewed urgency. Her claws tore into the packed snow. Her teeth gripped the frozen bark, scraping and pulling. She worked without sound, driven by instinct. From somewhere behind her, the cub cried, thin but alive. The sound cut through Caleb's fading awareness. He forced his hands to move. Pain tore through him as his fingers dug into the snow, pushing where the lynx had cleared space. His arms shook. His vision blurred. He rested for a second, then pushed again. Together, inch by inch, the pressure eased. Snow collapsed inward. The log shifted. Just enough. Caleb screamed as his leg came free. Then he was loose. He lay shaking, breath ragged, vision narrowing at the edges. The cold still clawed at him, but it no longer owned him. The lynx pressed against his side again, blocking the wind, her body a solid barrier between him and the forest. She stayed there. Minutes passed before sound returned to the world. Boots, shouts, voices calling his name. Hands reached him, careful and fast. Someone wrapped him in thick blankets. A stretcher slid beneath his body. As they lifted him, Caleb turned his head as far as he could. The lynx stood at the edge of the trees. The cub pressed close against her leg, half hidden in her fur. They did not follow. Weeks later, the snow melted. Caleb returned to the cabin on crutches. The forest smelled of wet earth and pine resin. Green pushed through the ground where ice had ruled for months, quiet and persistent. One morning, he saw them. The lynx stood between the trees, her coat lighter now, thinner with the season. The cub moved beside her, stronger, alert, no longer stumbling in the snow. They watched him once, still and unreadable. Then they turned and disappeared into the forest. Caleb never saw them again. But he knew. He had not been alone. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss new stories. And now just click the playlist or the next video on your screen.